Rita Basu and Dr. Andy Basu to moderate this session.
Thanks, Unisa. So this has been my experience while working at Cheraram Diabetes Institute. And thanks to Unisa who gave me an opportunity to use technology in managing IPD patients. And the beautiful technology that I got to use was the LibrePro. That's a flash intermittent glucose monitoring sensor. And it really helped us to see the glucose profile of each and every patient with different scenarios in the IPD. So I'm going to present some cases where we have tried to use CGMs in IPD patients. So all this while, since morning, we've been talking about managing sugars by insulin or basal bolus. But equally important is glucose monitoring. And those days are gone where we would just monitor 2 to 3 times when we used to use sliding scale. But since the basal bolus therapy has been the mainstay of insulin therapy, it's the 6-point or 7-point blood glucose monitoring, which is accepted and universally followed by all of us. Now, what is 6-point? 6-point is nothing but pre and post meals 3 times a day. That could be a pre and post breakfast, pre and post lunch, pre and post dinner. If you have something like a Somugi effect happening or chances of hypo happening in the midnight, it could be a 7-point blood glucose monitoring. So we have our own IPD protocols where this is the format and we use this for monitoring of blood glucose. But remember, these are just point of care glucometer readings. These are just giving you the stat readings. There are time periods in between where the sugars are not being monitored. And it's blinded. We don't even know what's happening to the sugars in that time period. The whole night when the patient is sleeping in the ward, we don't even know what's happening to the sugars. So that's when we realized that why don't we use CGMs to try to understand what's happening to the sugar. And it also gives more confidence to titrate the doses in the IPD. Otherwise, every time you have to titrate the dose, you have always a worry of hypoglycemia. But when you use this kind of CGMs, it takes that worry, and you are more confident in strongly going ahead and titrating the doses of basal bolus insulin. So this is what a LibrePro, I'm sure most of you must be using this, but for some who have not seen it, this is how a reader of a LibrePro looks like. It consists of 2 things. One is a small sensor, which is just a size of a 1 rupee coin, which is attached to the arm. It's got a filament which goes into the interstitial space. So what this sensor actually does is it monitors the sugars in the interstitial space. So remember, there is a lag time between the glucose in the capillaries or the blood and the interstitial space, which depends from somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes. So whatever reading you get with a CGM is something which has been 15 minutes back in the bloodstream. But what is more interesting is that this CGM can monitor your sugars every 15 minutes. There's a better continuous glucose monitoring system called Dexcom, also that we have used in our institute. It's just that it's a little more expensive, but it's much more better because it gives you sugar values every 5 minutes, and that helps the patient to actually monitor the sugars more closely. There are 2 versions of this LibrePro readers. One is a personal version, which is not available in India, but in Europe, patients have been using it, and they can use it to monitor their sugars and titrate their insulin levels according to the sugars. But what we use here is the professional version, which is there with the doctors and the hospital. Now, when we started using the CGM, we would look at the daily profile until I actually went and attended a session on how to understand an AGP. Now, AGP stands for ambulatory glucose profile. Now, what is this profile? It's not looking at a daily profile. It's actually a data which is collected over the 14 days, which is actually a masked data. When I say masked means a patient wears a sensor, goes home, continues to be on his oral medications or a basal bolus insulin, and he's not aware of what is being monitored. After 14 days, he comes to you and you look at the data that has been collected, and that is compiled as a 14 days data, and you use statistics, you use your standard deviation, you use your median to try to understand to what is happening to the blood glucose levels. Because each day, your daily profile is going to change. So we want a complete 14 days profile to understand what is happening on an average. But in the in-hospital use, we cannot do this because this is a compiled profile of a 14 days. So this is what a 14 days AGP looks like. And there are certain variables that we look at this profile. Number one is glucose variability. It could be an inter-day variability or an intraday. Inter-day means varying between days. Intraday is the same day. Time in range. That means we have realized that you can have an HbA1c of 7, but your sugars can still be uncontrolled because your sugars could still be varying between hypos and hypers. So it's all important how much is your glucose actually in time in range over the period of 24 hours. Then comes the glucose exposure and instability. Now these are the parameters you actually study when you have a 14 days profile. But what we're going to look at is if we use it in an IPD and we look at the daily profile, how do we actually read that? Now, what do we see this is a daily glucose pattern.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Can we ask someone to interpret this?
Yeah,
You
can
already
somebody
know,
interpret
you're
this?
presenting. So let's ask someone to interpret what this profile looks like. What are we seeing? He's already given all the answers. I just want you to look at the profile. Can someone interpret the profile? There has to be someone, right?
Don't worry. This is not an exam. So please come forward. Yes, ma'am, please. It,
Yeah. Correct. So ma'am says that there is inter-day variability. Anybody else? I think a lot of a remarkable thing is the hypoglycemia. Yes, ma'am. Correct, correct. So ma'am has said something called as time in range. I think that has become a very in thing these days. How much time the sugars lay in the range. A range means you would fix a range of 80 to 180, 100 to 180, and in over the period of 24 hours, how much time all the sugar values. So imagine every 15 minutes there's a glucose value. In a day, you almost have 100 readings put on a daily graph. And how much time the glucose actually stays in the range. That is more is important. So to define time in range, it's the proportion of time glucose values fall within a specific range. And then of course hypo and hyper. All that red you can see on the lower part is the hypos and all that yellow is the hypers. So I think these are the three variables that I could see. Sir, could you like to throw more light on it?
No, I think that's basically the essentials. Of course, we should not forget the other CGM that we use more frequently in the US, the Dexcom G5 or G6, which provides glucose readings every 5 minutes. So there are about 200 and plus glucose readings per day. So again, timing range is becoming more and more fashionable to use for CGM users as well as for clinicians. And there have been studies that have shown that time in range corresponds to hemoglobin A1C over time. Yeah.
So, and also when you do a 6-point blood glucose monitoring, there are a lot of periods when the glucose is not being monitored, and the CGM here actually helps to monitor that long period of hours when you actually don't know what's happening to the glucose. So this is what is time in range. And if you see there, you can see an average glucose of 152. Time in target range is 72%. Time below target is 7%. Time above target is 21%. So definitely there are hypos and hypers both together. Now, this is what we were discussing. Has time in target become an important measure of blood glucose control?
And the answer is yes, increasingly, especially in patients with type 1 diabetes.
So definitely it's something called as look beyond A1C, that A1C is not the only way to look at the glucose profile, but time in range can actually look beyond A1C. And there are definitely a lot of papers which say that time in range is strongly associated with risk of microvascular complications. So the more time your glucose is in the range, it's always better. Now, which patients could benefit most from use of CGM in IPD? Now this is because it's an experimental tool so far, you know. There are no guidelines and recommendations, but I could just come across one paper which was published by Umperes, and these were some of the indications where one could actually use a LibrePro sensor in IPD patients. Number one, any patients receiving insulin, especially intravenous insulin. So here a CGM can help you to look at the sugars every hour. I understand there could be a difference between your glucometer readings and your CGM readings. But definitely, if you want to monitor sugars every hourly with a glucometer, that means 24 strips in a day. If you look at the cost, of course, this is much more cost effective. Yes, as I said, there is a variation in the sugars that you might see with a glucometer and with a CGM. So what we do is, at least twice a day or maybe thrice a day, we also take a glucometer reading so that we know that your CGM readings are in line with the glucometer readings. Post-cardiac surgery patients, post-transplant, because they are on steroids, patients with end-stage renal disease or liver disease, and especially the best tool would be to somebody who has hypoglycemic unawareness. I think that's one where your CGM could pick up these cases and it can prevent a fatal hypoglycemia. So could CGM be a good tool for monitoring blood glucose levels when patient on insulin fusion?
Again, yes, but as I said, you know, in the US there are more regulations. I'm sure there are regulations here too. It has not yet been approved for use to change insulin dosing, but certainly we are assessing that to check the accuracy of CGM vis-a-vis blood glucose testing.
Just only in case of hypoperfusion or shock, we should just on IV.
One of the things to keep in mind is when in inpatient acute care settings where it is not yet approved, one of the reasons is also because we don't have any data on interference of various drugs and medications that the patient is on.
Paracetamol can cause interference.
Those research was done by me many years ago, and I presented all this. Time lag, I showed the time lag was about 5 to 6 minutes in non-diabetics, and in type 1s it was slightly higher. But to keep in mind that many of these drugs, I have done a study, it was published as well, where I showed interference with various medications that are commonly used by patients who have diabetes. So we have a long way to go before we can just start using CGMS in hospitalized or patients who are going for surgery, et cetera, who have multiple other comorbidities requiring medications. But it's a good start.
Right.
Absolutely. I think, like sir said, we are not actually trying to compare the CGM to glucometer or the plasma glucose. When we are looking at someone who needs monitoring for 24 times a day, we're comparing one reading of the interstitial glucose to the other reading of the interstitial glucose. So I think that is what makes our life easier rather than trying to compare these two readings. Yes, so look at the trends rather than looking at the individual glucose and trying to compare it. Secondly, I would like to know if there is any way that we can have different targets for the interstitial glucose. I mean, is there something that we can know about? We can keep it a little bit lower or higher or something like that? Okay.
Yes. After Dr. Sanjay, I have a point on this.
This one reason why it's not become very popular is because you miss out on hypoglycemias and response to hypoglycemia, because the lag between your blood glucose and the interstitial glucose is big. So you may miss out the hypoglycemias and you may react late to hypoglycemias. And that's one reason why CGMs have not really become popular. The other thing is that patients of vasoconstrictor or on
Yes,
inotropes,
definitely.
you know,
In an
specifically
ICU,
like
a
you said,
patient-
the patients of post-cardiac surgical,
yeah.
I would not give them because they are on inotropes. And if they are on inotropes, they'll be vasoconstricted.
especially, yes.
And you may not really get the true readings in those patients.
Especially
That's
if
why I
you're on a
said there's a
vasopressor.
lot more research to be done. And exactly what you said, that especially with Libre, the trends are slower, like it takes time for it to adjust. So even if sometimes patients overcorrect, so then they end up with hyperglycemia.
Yeah.
So because it's a slower compared to the interstitial.
Again, hypovolemic patients would
Intravascular.
be a problem, like Veda just pointed out. So there are a lot of downsides in the hospital environment. It's only stable patients who are adequately volume repleted, you may probably get them, you know. But
Also in patients with edema. We do
Yes,
not
in
know
edema specifically.
interstitial edema, how it affects glucose.
But the studies are going to be happening.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
they're doing it together. Yes.
So I have a point to make with regard to Dr. Anjali's question on targets. Now, you must remember that the use of CGM, as Dr. Rajesh said, is currently not approved. It's an experimental tool. So we've titled this talk an experimental tool. But you have to remember one thing. The interstitial fluid is outside the blood and outside the cell. So which glucose is closer to the cell? It's not the blood glucose, it's the interstitial glucose. So I think exciting work is in progress to find out whether interstitial fluid could be also a marker. So like Dr. Sanjay said, there are 3 reasons why we should not use this. One is there is a time lag. Second is it over-detects hypoglycemia. Third, as Dr. Rajesh said, you will have to do a calibration once in a while to make sure your glucometer test you will have to do once in a while to make sure everything is okay. But how many times are we checking a patient's blood sugar in hospital? 4 or 5 times. But this gives you a window. If you're worried, this patient is in the ward, this patient may get hypoglycemia at night, I don't want to keep on waking this patient at night to see. I think this has got a role in those select clinical settings. Now, Dr. Rajesh, I think we're running short of time, so please go to the case.
So let's go on to, I'm going to show these 3 cases, very simple, common cases that we come across in our IPDs when we manage diabetes. 56 years old, gentleman, type 2 diabetes, on premixed insulin, presented with uncontrolled glucose, HbA1c is 11.8, he's been advised a cataract surgery, so he's come to the IPD, says, I want to get my sugars controlled, and we said, okay, sugars are high, we put you on basal bolus, and we put a CGM for him, so we put a Librepro. In view of long-standing uncontrolled, the best would be a basal bolus. So this is how we do a 6-point blood glucose monitoring, where we do a pre and post-meal sugars. And next few days, maybe it takes about 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and we try to titrate the basal and the bolus according to the glucose values. But every time you titrate, there's always a fear, what if the patient may get hypo, So that's where when we thought that if there was an adjuvant to this monitoring with a CGM, this is how it would look like. Now, how do I read this daily profile? So I think we discussed time in range. So the first thing is, you can see the glucose exposure has been high throughout. So even on day 1, your sugars are completely high, and you have initiated a basal bolus. And by the 3rd, 4th day, you can find that you have achieved at least the fasting sugars to come into target. So if you see the time in target, which actually was 0% on day 1, has come to 37%. So there's definitely a better glucose control. And you can be more aggressive in titrating with the basal insulin with the support of this kind of glucose monitoring. So what variables apart from time in range can be observed from the daily profile? Anything, sir? So again, this is a case 2 patient with OED, specifically SU's glimepiride, presents with history of tiredness. You possibly think that this patient has hypoglycemia, admitted for monitoring and treating hypoglycemia, started on IV dextrose, and we also do a 6-point, we also use a Librepro sensor, and you can see that there are many hypos on day 1 and day 2, which if you would have just done a 6-point blood glucose monitoring, it could have been missed. So this is how your CGM daily profile would help you to look at the hypos that has been happening. So one question, does Librepro overestimate hypoglycemia? It does.
There's no doubt that it overestimates hypoglycemia. But remember, that's the reason why this was developed as a tool in the first place. Why it came into use is that we need something to detect hypoglycemia. So the machine is designed, all CGMs are designed in a way that even if it doesn't pick up a normal sugar or hyperglycemia, it should never miss a hypoglycemia. So that's how it is designed. And in hospital, I think that's one of the reasons which we have to remember. So yes, it does overestimate hypoglycemia. That's something to remember.
Thank you.
But it's better than missing hypoglycemia. In madam's words.
So this was a last case and an interesting because this was a CGM which we used in a patient who had CKD and progressed to ESRD, admitted with an early pulmonary edema, requiring dialysis. And so we started monitoring his sugars, and we thought that why not we put a Librepro sensor and see what happens. So this was interesting. We did an hourly glucose monitoring with the LibrePro sensor, also twice a day glucose with a glucometer. And this gentleman had to undergo dialysis on day 2 and day 3. So let's see what happens. So if you look at the profile on day 1, sugars are very high, and we had to start him on insulin infusion. The protocol is anybody in the intensive care unit requiring glucose management, it has to be on insulin infusion. And it required lots of doses of insulin on day 1. On the day 2, he underwent dialysis. Now if you see the day 2, there's a lot of variability. The sugars are just varying throughout the day. Of course there's hyper, but they are very much varying. And day 3, again dialysis. Day 1 was 2 hours and the day 2 was 3 hours. If you see the day 4, that is 1st September, you can see that the sugars are controlled, flat. That means the variability is gone. And patient did not even require insulin infusion. So which also gave us an insight that what happens to the glucose in uremia. Glucose is highly variable, glucose is high, and the moment you dialyze this patient and get the uremia under control, the variability gets better, the insulin resistance gets better, and the sugars are much under control. So definitely by using CGM, we could understand the glucose variability and how dialysis could actually take care of the sugars in this patient. So with that note, I would say that finally, can one use an AGP in indoor patients? How many of you want to raise hands and say, do you want to use AGP in indoor patients? Yeah? So I think a lot of people now want to use it. And still there are a lot of people who have their reservations of using it. What is your opinion, sir?
We are actually doing, controlled studies in dialysis patients and inpatients, along with Guillermo at Emory. And in fact, we're also going to start a closed-loop control study, which we can talk about later, using
Dr.
CGM.
Veda, what is your opinion? Do you want to
For select
love
patient,
it, the technology?
for a select patient, we have to definitely use this. Definitely not proven by guidelines, but we can use it. That's what I can.
So, Unni sir, you would encourage more to use CGMs in indoor patients at CDI?
So I think the question is, should we use it or should we not use it? We can wait for research. Research will take some time in coming. But we've been using it for last 3 years, 4 years. We've been using it selectively, and we found it to be useful. We can audit our results. We can wait for randomized control trials to be published. But I think if it's benefiting your patient, that's a judgment only you can take. You can use it in select. Can I say it's recommended? No, I can't say. Can we do a randomized control trial in India on this? Difficult to do. So if it's benefiting your patient, choose the patient, use it carefully. And when Dr. Andy Basu and Dr. Rita Basu present their fantastic trial next year, we will be able to know more. But again, your views on that, sir.
I think, Unni, it's very important to publish your findings as a pragmatic use. I think that would be very important to the literature. I would encourage that, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
So I must say, we don't use it for every patient. We are very careful in using it, and we use it very selectively, and only if the patient benefits, that situation we use. Rajesh, please stay on. Yes, sir, your question. So that problem is largely overcome because if you have a reader, you can bring it close to the patient and you will see the hypoglycemia as a red line. So that's clearly shown. And there is also another way, which is not a really, which is, I can say, not the correct way probably, but there are apps now available which will give you real time on your phone. You can see it on the phone even using a LibrePro or using a Dexcom. But I agree with you that a glucometer is superior. But at the same time, at nocturnal hypoglycemia, if you're worried, you have to wake up the patient for that. So in judgment, should you use it? No. But on an occasional patient, if you try it, are you wrong? No. We require more studies and more studies on that. Let's take more questions from the audience. Dr. Rajesh, stay with me. Acute kidney injury?
No, DKA.
DKA? No, we wouldn't use it in DKA. No. Okay, so the question is glycemic variability and cardiovascular outcome. So there have been lots and lots of trials on this, but there is no single study which has conclusively proven that glycemic variability worsens or increases cardiovascular outcomes. That's the bottom line. So glycemic variability, currently people have been struggling to design. There are many ways like, Dr. Veda, you would like to talk?
Postprandial hyperglycemia is linked with CV, definitely. But yes,
Yes.
postprandial hyperglycemia studies are there.
So you have MARD, MAG, several things. Would you like to talk about time and range as an indicator of glycemic variability?
Yes, so basically in UK, in type 1 diabetes subjects, they are more focusing on time in range, and if it is around 70%, they are okay with that. So time in range, if we see in AGPs, and if it is 70%, then they consider that A1C is around 7%.
So if you see time in range, it's a very simple tool. If you want to explain HbA1c, it's very difficult to tell the patient your glucose is bound to hemoglobin and that is 3 months. But time in range is the time in which the blood sugar is in control. If only 40% of the time the blood sugar is in control, that means there is glycemic variability. Either it's going up or going down. So that's a simple way, and you can now even get it with glucometer-based data. You can get it on glucometer-based data if you wish. If a patient is, for example, gestational diabetes, you have glucometers which link to the cloud, and you can get a time in range if patient is checking 6 times a day. So that's a simple measurement. Otherwise, theoretically, there are so many measurements like mean ascending glucose excursion, MARD, and so many other measures are there, but this is a simple way to look at that. Any other questions from the audience? We are going to wind up now because we are running out of time. I'm going to invite Dr. Veda to, yes, Dr. Shinde was first, yes.
Yes.
So that's exactly the heart of what I said. The interstitial fluid is outside the blood vessel and outside the cell. It's closer to the cell. So we are not saying that we always thought that glucometer is a gold standard. But is it the gold standard? That's a question that's a question you are asking. Is it the gold standard? That's what needs more research. I think we had one more question from Madam. Yes, Madam. Sorry, I didn't hear you. So this is a different question, the use of CGM and AGP as an educational tool for the patient. So I call it the moving selfie. Okay? You take a selfie of me, I'm smiling now. But if you had taken a selfie of me at 7:30 today morning, you would have seen my face completely tense. Will audience come? Will the stalls be ready? If you had taken it at 3 a.m. today, my expression would have been even more bizarre. I'm looking to see if the screen is built or not. So a selfie will only tell you your sugar at that point of time. But a CGM, which a patient can see, is a moving selfie of his or her glucose control. They can see it, they can make adjustments to their lifestyle. And it's a very, very empowering tool. Let's not underestimate that tool. And if any of you have diabetes, I know doctors have diabetes, I encourage you to use it, and you will find how empowering it is to you, because you will get an insight. So a moving selfie of your own sugar control. That's my summary.
That using CGM alone, just adding a CGM without any education, improves A1C.
So,
So if you look at the interstitial glucose versus venous capillary, the CGM actually extrapolates that. But I think that this will be discussed tomorrow in 2 sessions we have. One is a time and range session in the same hall, same time. Sorry, the other hall, same time. And there is a workshop on AGP tomorrow evening at about 4 o'clock. So I encourage you to attend that to know more. Yes, final question, and then we'll close down, please. Yes, but today we don't even need that, because some of these, there is an app called Glimp. Glimp, if you have an Android phone with NFC, if you use a Glimp app, the patient can download the Glimp app, and the LibrePro result can be seen on the phone. It's not very reliable. The company doesn't support it. If it goes wrong, the company will not even replace the sensor. But we have used it in type 1 diabetes, and we have found it very empowering for patients. In fact, we have patients with type 1 diabetes, fluctuating sugars, whose parents come and who need to see their child's blood sugar readings, and we have used it, and it works very well. And this is a phenomenon in the UK. It's called DIY, do it yourself, and it's also called We Are Not Waiting. What is DIY? We are not waiting. There are a group of type 1 diabetic people who have said that we are not waiting for this technology to come. We want to work on it so that our health is better. So they developed this app and they are using it, and that's how this app has come into. It's not approved by any company, and probably the patient will lose the warranty. But if it is, as I said, the proof of the pudding is it helping your patient? So that area of writing down and all is now gone, because if you use this app, you can actually enter it. Dr. Shinde, your views? Yes, yes.
CGM, so that they know what type of meal will give rise to how much hyperglycemia, what type of food does not give rise to hyperglycemia. So that's one of the best educational tools.
So I think we are concluding that CGM is a good educational tool. Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Thank you, Dr. Veda. Thank Dr. Andy Basu and Dr. Rita Basu. I'd like